Common developer workflow in test-driven development is writing tests, writing code, then deploying with some confidence that everything works as expected. But realistically, for a lot of teams, this can be hard to prioritize, and writing and maintaining tests, especially end-to-end ones, takes a lot of effort and it's often skipped and deprioritized. So we're exploring ways to give developers another medium of feedback if things in their app are working as intended without the overhead of writing and maintaining traditional tests. The flows concept here is a lightweight way to validate that critical parts of your app are working as expected by observing and asserting real behavior in production. All right, well, what does that mean? Let's jump over to a prototype here. If I wanted to click the create a flow, there's two options here. One from existing session replay. What does that mean? Let's open that up. So I'm looking at this replay, and this is one of them of the login screen. And this is just another session replay that Sentry already has from your app. And do this drop down, and I can search for a specific one, or I can also look at a suggested one. Let's take a look at this one because multiple payment validation failures have been occurring here. So I'm going to take a look at this one. And let's say that we reviewed a number of them, but we identified this one is actually working exactly as intended, and we wanted to create a flow out of it. So I'm going to create a flow called the checkout flow, since that's on the checkout screen. If we wanted, we could prompt a suggestion for what the assertion should be. So this says account creation fields entered correctly and successful submission. So then Sentry will test against that as new replays come in. We'll take a closer look at that. But I could add in more specific assertions here. So for example, here, I'm going to add the page needs to be on the checkout page. So making sure it's at least on the right page. And then I'm going to add a locator assertion. Let's say since this is a checkout page and there's a payment involved, let's say I want to make sure that the payment method needs to be visible. Okay. And then there's some out-of-the-box assertions. Let's make sure there's no console errors, no network errors, and no 404 errors. If any of these assertions are failing, Sentry will create an issue and inform you. I'm going to go ahead and create this, and it's going to be a new flow. Okay, great. So we have our checkout flow now. Going back to how these could be created, I'll create another one from production. Okay, so now what I'm looking at is the actual production in my app, and I configured that to be able to log on here, and I have the details here. And then it's indexed by my different screens. So here's the checkout, and back to the login. And so this is an actual preview of my production, or not a preview, it is my production, and I want to create a flow around that. So I'm going to go ahead and start that. Okay, so it's working as intended, and now I stop the flow, and I'm going to say it's a login flow. And I'm going to add the assertion here. Since it's a login, I want to make sure that it's certainly on the right page. And you'll notice the output here. This assertions are in the same format as you would find with assertions in Playwright, for example. So it's really mirroring the familiar tests that are already in use sometimes. Okay, I'm going to do that. Do this one. I have what I need for this page. Okay, we created that assertion. Okay, so now that we reviewed that, that's how we created. The system also generates some suggested flows. We actually created one around that for the multiple payments one. Let's just take a look at the existing flows we have here. We have login, we have user registration. These are really the critical parts of the app, and we have a status here of where it's failing and linked issues. But let's take a closer look at what's going on here. So I'm going to play this, and this is one of the recent replays. What's going on here? And it appears that there's a 503 error and that it's failing. And I can take a look here at what are the assertions that were created to see what the acceptance criteria is of this flow and why is it failing. And it appears that there's a backend server error. And here are the last 10 replays. So we have an aggregation of replays that are showing the same exact error, and we link them here. The last concept I want to review here is, since we have all these flows and as these are created, as users are making changes in the app, let's say in the checkout flow area, for example, now we're in the pull request. And Sentry can inform you that, there's some flows related to the areas where changes were made. And in the previous check, so that would have been the previous commit ahead of this one, or the previous release check that this was on, one of the flows appears to be failing. And this pull request is actually about changing promotional codes with the checkout flow. So this lets the user know there's actually already existing errors with this in that flow. So we can click that and we can take a look at it. And again, we're on this flows details page, and we're able to see what the errors that are already in existence from the latest replay. And we see that, and then we can start researching this again. We can see the previous ones, we can see what's going on. And then lastly, we can actually see what the related issues are, and here they are. And so then we're right into the issue workflow, and we can start debugging from here. Okay, that closes out this prototype review. This is just a high-level concept that we're exploring, and I just love your thoughts on anything catch your eye, anything you love, anything you hate. Would you use this? Would you not use this, or why? Feel free to shoot me an email or reach out directly. Thank you for watching.